Welcome to Crossroads. I'm Jen.
And my name is Miko. So glad you're here with us. And whether this is the first time you've been here or you've been here all 30 years, we're happy that you're with us today.
Yeah, that's right. Today is one of my favorite things you get to see while we worship is baptisms. What I love about baptism is so often in our faith, we don't get to see tangibly what's happening in lives, right? Like there's forgiveness and there's breakthrough that happens in relationships and different things that the Lord does, but we don't get to see it physically. And today with baptisms, we get to see people who've made a decision in their life that Jesus is their Lord and Savior, and they're going to publicly go under the water as them old selves, and they're going to come back up as new creation in Jesus. And you're going to see people celebrate, and it's going to be awesome.
I know last week you guys saw a bunch of middle schoolers getting baptized. This week we got hundreds of people across every site doing it.
Yes, check it out with us.
Look at what down and rescued me. I have known the love of the Father's heart, a prodigal now redeemed. From where I was to where I'm now, it's overwhelming. The more and more I see you move all around, oh, you say, I can't help but praise you, Lord. I can't help but lift up shouts of joy. When I think of how good you've been, faithful now to the end, I can't help but praise you, Lord. For the blood you spilled to save my life, a debt I could not repay. For the cross you bore with open arms, salvation that called my name. From where I was to where I'm now, it's overwhelming. Yes, it is. The more and more I see you move all around me, oh, I can't help but praise you, Lord. I can't help but lift up shouts of joy for all you've done. When I think of how good you've been, you're faithful now to the end. I can't help but praise you, oh, I can't help but dance 'cause I'm free. Got no chains on me. I'm healed and redeemed. I can't help but call on the name that buried my shame, who opened my grave. Oh, I can't help but dance 'cause I'm free. Got no chains on me. I'm healed and redeemed. I can't help but call on the name that buried my shame, who opened my grave. I can't help but praise you, Lord. Oh, I can't help but lift up shouts of joy for all you've done. When I think of how good you've been, faithful now to the end, I can't help but praise you. You've been so good. Oh, I can't help but praise you. Praise for all you are. Oh, I can't help but praise you, Lord. Sing to the one who's changed all these lives that we saw this morning. I could sing your name for all my life and still find more to love each time. May Jesus be the name ever on my lips. It's sweeter every time that I call on it. There's just something about your name. Tell him. There's just something about your name. There's just something about your name that makes me cry holy. There is no other name. There is no other name. There is no other name. And Jesus, you're worthy. You have been the friend who never left. is sweeter every time that I call on it. 'Cause there's just something about your name. Tell him. There's just something about your name. There's just something about your name that makes me cry holy. Lord, there is no other name. No, there is no other name. There is no other name. Jesus, you're worthy. Philippians 2 says that God has given the name of Jesus above every name in all of creation. Your name is like the morning light, the one the darkness can't deny, the resurrection and the life. Jesus, and Jesus, your name can save, your name can heal, your name can make the storm be still. You never fail, you never will. Jesus, Jesus, the bread of life broken for us, the wounded and the worthy one, the first and last, the still to come. Jesus, and Jesus, the King who overwhelmed the grave, the Lord who will forever reign, the name above all other names. Jesus, Jesus be the name. Jesus be the name. Oh, Jesus be the name that gets all the glory. Jesus be the name. Jesus be the name. Oh, Jesus be the name that gets all the glory. Oh, Jesus be the name above all others. Jesus be the name. There is no other. Jesus be the name that gets all the glory. Lord, Jesus be the name. Jesus be the name. Jesus be the name that gets all the glory. Jesus be the name. Jesus be the name. Jesus be the name that gets all the glory from our lives. Jesus be the name. Jesus be the name. Jesus be the name that gets all the glory. Sing it again. Say, Jesus be the name. Jesus be the name. Jesus be the name that gets all the glory. Lord, Jesus be the name. Jesus be the name. Jesus be the name that gets all the glory. Jesus, your name throughout history has saved. It's actually pushed the darkness away when your name is spoken. It's healed people. And today we've seen right in front of our eyes, it's brought people to life. People that thought they were dead, broken, you've made whole and brought to life by the power of your name.
I know to talk like that sounds like we're saying it's just like magic, like, ta-da. There's a mystery to it. But it's one I found true for my life. When I speak your name, things change in my heart and in my mind, and therefore in my body, and how I see this world and treat the ones around me. Your name is love. Your name is peace, and your name always leads to life. Thank you, Jesus. We give you all the glory and honor this morning, and praise you, Father. We pray this in your Son's name, Jesus. Amen. Yeah, can we celebrate what we just saw? Come on, make some noise for all those who got baptized. Man, it's so good. So good. Hey, you know, every month, my family and I, we choose to worship God with our money, and we give a portion of our income to God as an act of worship and getting in line with saying, you're my King, Jesus. But the byproduct of that is that our money goes to things like this. Where else would I want my money to go to than people getting to meet Jesus like this? So if you want to do that like we do, you can do that at crossroads.net/give. Hey, right now though, why don't you turn to somebody in the room or online, give yourself a high five, or whoever you're with. Why don't you turn to somebody, give them a high five, say, we came on a good weekend.
Baptisms will never get old to me. Like Justin said, it's something to celebrate. People are taking that step because Jesus has rescued them. Bonds of addiction have been broken. People are overcoming anxiety and depression and bitterness, and resentment is being healed. And that's not normal in our world. Yeah. If you're thinking, I'm ready to take a step toward baptism, but you don't live near Crossroads building, don't let that stop you. Crossroads Anywhere is a whole community of people. We're all over the globe, and we'd love to meet you. And we do meet people exactly where you are, to pray with you, to help baptize you. I'm certain we have people in or near your city and are watching alongside you right now.
Yeah, and whether or not you want to sign up for baptisms or just get connected with the Anywhere team, please text the word MORE to 301-301, fill out a connect card, and you'll get connected to real people.
Yes, real people like me. Texting MORE to 301-301 is a new thing that we're trying, where you're not going to be subscribed to anything, but instead we're going to just be able to send you a direct link to your phone for everything we talk about today. And so you can just click that link to learn more when you text MORE, get it? to 301. But we love to get to know people, so much so that coming to you August 28th through the 30th is Anywhere Weekend on the road. And I'd love to meet you. Our team would love to meet you, and that's in August in Sandusky.
Yes, man, it's so true that this life is not meant to be lived alone. We need other people around us, people who show up and celebrate our kids' birthdays, people that show up for you when you're in the hospital or a loved one's in the hospital, someone to hype you up on date night. Yeah. We need people, man.
Yes. Crossroads is a big church, but it doesn't mean that you can't belong or be a part of people who know who you are. So come to Anywhere Weekend so we can get to know who you are, and you can meet some new friends and get filled up. It's August 28th through the 30th in Sandusky, Ohio. You can find all the details and learn more by texting MORE to 301-301.
Yes, man. And there's probably a lot of people who also don't know that Crossroads is also in prisons all over the country. Crossroads has a physical presence in a few prisons here in Ohio, but all over the nation, Crossroads has a digital presence too. So if you've got a friend or family member who's incarcerated, please tell them to check out Crossroads on the Pando app on their tablets. They can watch the weekly teachings, the daily podcast. I do a morning devotional for the people that are incarcerated every morning, Monday through Friday. As the prison director here, I'll be honest, I'm a little biased, but I think it's really one of the best things that we get to do.
I agree with you. And it is the Pando app.
Yes.
So that's pretty awesome. Yeah. Since we've started, there have been over 4,600 incarcerated residents who have said yes to Jesus, and about 3,000 who watch every single week. It's incredible what God is doing in prisons.
Yeah. And all right, one more thing. Well, before we go, we actually want to talk about Go Trips. It's very important. Jen, talk to them about Go Trip.
Go Trip is a Go Trip is a trip that you might go somewhere else in a different country or a different region in the U.S. where one, you go. You'll step outside of your comfort zone for sure. Two, you serve alongside organizations who are on the ground there and experts in the incredible work that they're doing. And three, you'll make a tangible impact.
Yeah, man. And this week, right now, we are still continuing in our origin story series, and we're going to hear from one of our leaders, Rob. He's going to be sharing with us. Typically, he's behind the scenes, but he's going to be sharing with us the story about Cain and Abel. Before we get to that, though, we're going to hear from a story, one of the Go Trip stories from someone in our community now, Cameron.
Yeah, Cameron.
I live in a different city than my family, and so when they became members of the Crossroads Mason site, I attended the services when I was there with them, but I was only able to really watch Crossroads online for a majority of the time. I knew that Crossroads had such a community feel, but I felt like I was almost missing that, not being able to volunteer and, really work directly with a community every single week. I felt like I didn't have a group of people that could push me in my faith journey. When I was able to, see that Crossroads had a Go Trip, I felt like this would be a great opportunity to just really build that sense of community that I was, longing for. I just had this overwhelming feeling that I should be on it. I wanted to bring my parents with me because I knew that I wanted to go, and I thought that it would be amazing if they wanted to join me. So I was able to convince them both to go, and it's been really cool seeing how God has impacted all of us, but also how God has impacted us as a family. One of the nights at worship, we were given the opportunity to pray out loud. I have never had a stronger feeling that God was in a room than in that worship room the other night. God was speaking through every single person when they spoke. Hearing my dad speak up and pray out loud in a group made me extremely emotional right off the bat, because I don't think that he would have had the confidence to pray, especially out loud in a group of people that he just met a couple of days ago. I broke down because I felt like I was the first person that put this Go Trip in his head, and so the fact that he had been touched so meaningfully just by, me asking him if he wanted to go was incredible. This Go Trip has had an enormous amount of change on my life. I feel like I have that community that I was longing for. It's also really inspired me to do more work in small groups and to even maybe start a small group where I live. It was absolutely worth it for me to go on a Go Trip. I think that I have been impacted in ways that I couldn't even imagine. And I know from this Go Trip that I now have a community of people that will support me every day in the future as well.
Any story that ends with a baptism is a great story, right? Hi, I am Rob, and it's great to be here with you this weekend. 20 years ago, I got to be a part of the team that invented Go Trips here as a volunteer. It's amazing that we let volunteers do stuff like that. But as a volunteer, our first trip went to South Africa with 300 people in 2006. And since then, we've had almost 4,000 people go to South Africa, and 12,500 people go on Go Trips entirely. So to hear Cameron's story is just so encouraging for me. And I'll tell you, Go Trips, they gave me my purpose, helped me figure out what God had for me. Some of the best friends of my life came from Go Trips, and they were instrumental in me and my wife getting together. So if you want to change in your life, go on a Go Trip. Go on, give it a try. Who knows what God's going to do? I have now been on staff for 17 years, and I lead a lot of our teaching and strategy. So I'm often in the back room with our teachers talking about, well, should we say this? Should we not say this? Let's change this, whatever. And every once in a while, Kyle likes me to get up here because he says it creates empathy. So, whatever. So it's been 7 years. Last time I was up here was 7 years ago. So it has been 7 years without empathy. So I guess it's time that I'm up here. A little about me. I have been married to Allison for 19 years. We have 3 daughters. Our oldest, London, is 16, Annabelle is 14, and Becca is 10. And earlier this week, London says to me, unprompted, she says, "You're teaching this weekend, right?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "You know, a lot of kids in our school go to Crossroads." So that was kind of a shot across the bow. And then Annabelle adds like an hour later, "If you don't do a good job, it comes back on us." And so I have all the support in the world from my family. So the best thing to do is tell you a story about them so you get to know us a little better, right? So I've been at Crossroads for a long time. And one thing I always heard Brian Tome teach was you want to be first to market with your kids, right? You want to be the first one that they hear from on all the difficult stuff. So whether it's, drugs or sex or whatever, they want to hear it from you first. So I took that to heart. That seems like good advice. So this was like 8 years ago, and I think my oldest daughter's like 7 or 8 at the time. And we're watching TV, and something comes on, and it's confusing. I don't even know what it was. And she's like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "This is my moment." So I say to her, "London, you can ask me anything, and I will tell you the truth. If it's scary, if it's weird, whatever it is, you ask me, and I will tell you the truth." And she gets really quiet. And at this moment, I know I've made a huge mistake because I am not prepared for what she is about to ask. She says, "Daddy, what is Area 51? Like, ironically, it's one thing we can't talk about. My middle daughter, same situation. "Daddy, what is kid prison and what do you have to do to be sent there?" I'm like, "Are you planning something right now? Like, really?" And then my youngest daughter, different situation. I'm asking her questions. We're around the dinner table. She's like 4 years old. And I'm like, "Becca, what makes your mommy a great mommy?" Without hesitation, wine. So you're paying attention. She's paying attention. My wife insisted that I say, for the record, to everybody, my wife is not a wino. So I'll put that out there. All right. So it's a little about us. 26 years ago, I walked into Crossroads. We were meeting in a Montessori school auditorium. And so I've seen a lot over the years. And it looks very different, but the DNA is still the same. And when I walked into that auditorium, really the reason I did is because I believed that living a life of faith was going to lead to a better life. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what a life of faith was, faith in what. I had all kinds of questions. It's all kinds of stuff I saw in Christian culture that I didn't understand, didn't like. I had all kinds of issues, and even if I tried, I failed, so I had no idea what it was. And I'm going to assume that you came here this weekend for the same reason, right? We think that living a life of faith is going to be good for us, but we have a lot of questions, and we don't really know what that means. Now, the Bible story we're going to look at, we're going to go way back to one of the most ancient stories in the Bible, and I think it can make it simple for us. Not easy, but I think it can make it simple for us. So this message, I've got 3 points, and I should tell you, as I was preparing this message, I noticed some outages in my own life that were kind of surprises, and I'm going to point those out as I go along. And then a little warning, in the middle of this message, for only about 3 minutes, I'm going to talk about money. So we're going to do it together. It's only 3 minutes. I promise we will get through it. So let me pray. God, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for this weekend. Thank you that we're all here together to encounter you. And I pray that I hope you honor that and that you will show up and that we can encounter you through this weekend. It's in your son Jesus' name I pray. Amen. So I said we're going to start with one of the most ancient Bible stories. We're going to go all the way back to the story of Cain and Abel. These are Adam and Eve's children. Now, why are we doing this? If you've been to any other weekends in this series, you'll know we've been mining Hebrews chapter 11 each week. We've been talking about Hebrews chapter 11. It's called the Hall of Faith. And Hebrews is a book in the New Testament of the Bible, so it comes after Jesus. And in chapter 11, it lists all these biblical figures who are celebrated throughout history for their faith. So we figured, let's talk about all those people and let's learn something from them and see what they have to teach us. And the first person mentioned in Hebrews chapter 11 is a man named Abel. Okay? So let me read it to you. Hebrews 11:4 says, "By faith Abel offered to God a more acceptable sacrifice than Cain, through which he was commended as righteous, God commending him by accepting his gifts. And through his faith, though he died, he still speaks." So what actually happened with Abel that would cause God to say thousands of years later, he still speaks? Well, to do that, we're just going to go back and we're going to read the story. It's not that long. It's in Genesis chapter 4. So the first thing that happens after Adam and Eve, let me read you Genesis chapter 4, verses 1 to 5. "Now Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, saying, 'I have gotten a man with the help of the Lord.' And again, she bore his brother Abel. Now Abel was a keeper of sheep, and Cain a worker of the ground. In the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground, and Abel also brought of the firstborn of his flock and of their fat portions. And the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain and his offering, he had no regard." So what's going on here? Because on the surface, God kind of looks like a jerk, doesn't he? Like, it kind of feels like it's like my kids give me a Father's Day card, right? And the first one, I'm like, "Oh, this is so lovely, thank you, honey." And the second one, I'm like, "This is crap, rip it up and throw it away," right? Is that what happens here? No, that's not what's happening here. Remember, the rules are being written at this point. The fundamentals are being put in place. This is early on. And what Abel does is establish an extremely important principle for living a life of faith. And that is to get the order right. To get the order right, to put God first. Faith equals first. That verse says that Cain was a farmer. So and it says, in the course of time, he brings an offering. So Cain's bringing in crops, and every once in a while, he's setting some aside, right? I think a lot of us will look at that and think, well done. You did your duty, right? You paid your God tax. You put the money aside. But let me ask you this. Does that really show trust in God? Compare him to his brother Abel. Abel's a shepherd, and he brings the firstborn of his flock. That's extremely valuable and a huge risk for a herder. Why is it a huge risk? Because every lamb is capital, first of all. And if you give the firstborn, you don't know what's coming next, right? So you're doing it out of faith because you don't know what comes after it, if it's good or bad. Cain doesn't really make himself vulnerable at all before God. He's giving some aside to God, great, but he doesn't make himself vulnerable at all. Abel goes all in by giving the firstborn. Giving your first puts you in a vulnerable position before God, and that's what leads to faith. For you football fans, training camp started this week. I'm a Browns fan. I was born into it, so I had no choice. And you remember, we taught suffering, perseverance, character, hope. So I am full of hope because of all the suffering. I've learned the value of a first-round draft pick. The way I learned that is when you give up 3 first-round draft picks for a quarterback with 22 pending lawsuits. You learn how valuable, because you don't know what's coming next, right? Or you spend a first-round draft pick on Johnny Manziel. You learn the value of your first. Not every team can be the worst team in the league the year a generational talent like Joe Burrow comes out. Not everybody can do that, so well done you all. But first-round draft picks are critical. First-round draft picks are important, right? Because it's your first. They're valuable. By giving his first and getting the order right and making God first, Abel makes himself vulnerable before God. He's saying, I trust you over all else. And that's what God commends him for later. Our relationships are defined by what we do first. I would argue, who's the first person you call? When you get the diagnosis or when you get the promotion, either the good or the bad, the first person you call, that's the most important relationship in your life, right? Because that information has value, and it makes you vulnerable when you share it. You know, I've been married for 19 years, and I bet many of you do this. Within half a word, I know if this is a good call or a bad call from my wife, right? It takes half a word, because I think we've been vulnerable with each other. And we've learned this. where you put your first is most important in your life. I said I was going to talk about money, so here we go. 3 minutes, I promise, okay? This is why we teach the tithe here at Crossroads. This is why. And those of us who tithe, and there are a lot of us who do, define tithe as the first 10% of your gross income to the local church. Don't get hung up on 10%, message for a different time. Not 10% of the whole, the first 10%. Why? Because it's a godly principle that creates a proper order. It puts God first. And we've seen so much, when people put God first, things start to change in their life. Proverbs 3, 9-10 says, honor the Lord with your possessions and with the first fruits of all your increase. So your barns will be filled with plenty and your vats will overflow with new wine. I do this every paycheck. I get paid every 2 weeks. My wife gets paid every 2 weeks. I know the day. And the first thing in the morning, I go in and I give before we do anything else because I want to put God first. And I give out of the gross, not the net. Now, let me explain. Why that? Because if I give out of the net and I let taxes be taken out first, then I'm giving to the government first, and I'm not going to put my faith in the government no matter who's in charge, right? Now, doesn't matter if I pay my mortgage first and then I give. I don't know, on a one-off, probably not, but I do think it's good for my soul. But I'll tell you, the day that I don't have enough to do all the things, that's the day I hope I'm found faithful. And that's the day I hope I say, God, I trust you. I'm putting you first. Okay, money part's done. That's it. See, that wasn't that bad, right? Okay, here's another example. This is one of my wife and I went, I don't think we put God first at all. It's one of our biggest failures, I think. So after we had our first child, Allison heard pretty strongly, you need to leave work. You need not work anymore. And that was very scary for us because she had worked her whole life and wanted to keep working. And that was like more than 50% of our salary to walk out the door. And so she did leave that job, but we compromised and we tried to protect ourselves. So she took a different job. I don't think she was supposed to. We're like, oh, this looks good. So we're honoring God by leaving the job, but we're going to take this one, which actually paid a little more and it seemed a little better. It was a more exciting company. And it was great for a while. And then things started to go downhill. And the hours changed and the pay changed. And then we have our second child. And after maternity leave, she goes back to that job. And it gets even worse. The hours get worse. I think they cut her pay. And we're like, I think maybe we need to be faithful here. We need to put God first. So she decides to leave her job. Remember, 50% of our salary is walking out the door that day. We have 2 children now, 2 babies, and we don't know how we're going to pay for this. So that day, the day that she quit, Allison's praying, God, I need some encouragement here that this is the right thing to do. At the exact same moment that happens, I'm at work, I get a call to come down to the front desk. This box shows up. Kind of looks like a ransom note. Got stuff cut out. Says, whatever you need, God's got you covered. No clue who sent this box. And inside of this box are 24 $100 bills. I still have no idea who this came from. No clue. I think God was using someone else to say, I got you. Trust me. Put me first. And I'll tell you, this box has been speaking to us for 15 years because it sits on a shelf in our office. And we see it every day. And so just put God first. He's got us. It's not just money. There are other ways of being faithful by giving your first. Let's talk about prayer real quick. You know, if you get sick, I'm a big fan of modern medicine. I'm a big fan of prayer. But which one do you do first? When you get sick, do you go to Dr. Google first, Dr. ChatGPT, then you go to a real doctor, and then you pray if it doesn't work out? Or do you pray first and then do those things? I think the order really matters. Think about relationships. You meet someone for the first time. Is the first thing you do what I think God wants us to do, which is to say, how can I benefit this person I've just met? Or is the first thing you do say, how can I get something out of this person I just met? I think the order matters. So I think if you're looking to up your faith, look for places in your life where you need to be vulnerable, where you need to put God first. That is where you're going to build your faith. All right, part 2. Let's talk about Cain, because Cain is a cautionary tale. And I'm going to read you the story, the rest of the story from Genesis. It's a little longer, but I want you to hear the whole thing. Genesis 4, verse 5. So Cain was very angry, and his face fell. The Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry, and why is your face fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? If you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is for you, and you must rule over it." Cain spoke to Abel, his brother, and when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is Abel, your brother?" He said, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" And the Lord said, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground. And now you're cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it shall no longer yield to you its strength. You shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth." Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment's greater than I can bear. Behold, you've driven me today away from the ground, and from your face I shall be hidden. I shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." Then the Lord said to him, "Not so. If anyone kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold." And the Lord put a mark on Cain, lest any who found him should attack him. Then Cain went away from the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. When he built a city, he called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. This is all we know about Cain. So he's giving over time, but he's not really putting his trust in God. That doesn't work. Then he gets angry. That leads to violence. Then he lies about it. Then he tries to defend himself. Then, after getting punished, he complains. He's worried about other people killing him, which, I'm going to say it, side note, at this point in the Bible, we've only been introduced to 4 people, Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel, right? So this is exhibit A, that Genesis is not giving us the complete picture. It's just giving us God's truth about creation. I'm fine if somebody believes other, but this is something we have to wrestle with. And this is a place where we get to wrestle with stuff like that. Now, God still shows Cain mercy, right? Even after all that he's done. And Cain ultimately builds a city, which in the ancient world is a symbol of protection because cities are surrounded by huge walls. For many biblical scholars and theologians, Cain is the first person to adopt religion as a defense mechanism. It's all about looking good and then manipulating things to protect yourself in every way when that doesn't work out for you. This is called out later in the New Testament by Jude, Jesus' brother, who's writing a letter to some fellow believers who are having trouble with a bunch of people in their midst. And here's what Jude says. "But these people blaspheme all that they do not understand, and they are destroyed by all that they, like unreasoning animals, understand instinctively. Woe to them, for they walked in the way of Cain." He's a cautionary tale. We cannot fake faith. Cain tried. While his brother, Abel, made himself vulnerable before God, Cain did not, and he only worked to protect himself. Faith equals first, not fake. Jesus says in Matthew, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who's in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, 'Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your name and do many mighty works in your name?' And then will I declare to them, 'I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness.'" This verse haunts me a bit because I work for a church and it would be so easy. It is so easy to look like I'm doing the right things, to look faithful. And I don't want to do that. I'm going to give you 2 examples. Now I'm going to say something up here that's very controversial, especially for someone who's worked at a church for 17 years. I don't like worship music. I know. Before I go on, let me say this. Our worship leaders at Crossroads are incredible. They are world-class musicians. Do you know they write a lot of the songs they play up here? Unbelievable, right? And the ones who I know personally are even better humans. They are fun, they are wise, they are faithful, and we should all be just grateful to be under their leadership. But I don't like worship music. You're not going to see me with my hands up, usually. On Wednesday mornings, we have all staff worship, and it can get pretty intense, and I'm kind of usually in the back, just kind of watching. I just can't do it, because let me tell you what's happening inside my head. You know, I ask a lot of questions. And the lyric comes up, and I think, what does that mean? Do I believe that? Does that fit with the previous thing? I'm not sure about that one. And then by the time I get through all that, we've moved on to another lyric. So I do it again. And then if I get through that, it's, do I feel that way? I don't think I feel that way. I'd like to feel that way. Does that person feel that way? I don't know if they feel it. Is that person looking at me? Should I put my hands up right now? Right? It's just going through, it's just constant. I just can't do worship music. And I'll tell you, on my bad days, I am judging the people around me who are into it. I'm like, you don't really feel that way, right? But on my best days, I am jealous of the people around me who are into it because I'm like, I want to feel that way. I wish I could feel that way. It is an ongoing struggle for me. Now, working in a church, it would be very easy for me to fake it. I could mouth the words. I hear the songs all the time, so I know the words. I could put my hands up, right? Just do the thing. I could just do this way, right? I could get into it. But I just can't do it. Now, but this has left me wondering. This is one of the outages I noticed in my life. Do I have something in my life where I'm really giving God praise and reverence and the adoration that he deserves? Like, how am I doing that in my life? That would be real for me. How am I doing that? And I don't have a good answer. I'm kind of disappointed by that. So now I'm asking myself, like, what do I need to change about my life to get to that point? Here's the second one. I don't usually pray before meals. I know. Before you write me emails, let me say, I know that Jesus prayed before meals. I know. So I am not standing on solid ground here. I get it. But it always felt so forced to me, so fake. I just couldn't do it. I'm like, I'm not truly giving thanks to God. I'm just saying words so we can all eat, right? So I just kind of stopped doing it. So that leads to awkward moments where, you go out with church people and says, I work for a church. The food comes and everybody gets quiet and starts looking at their plates. And I start moving my fries around a little bit because I'm not going to bite. And then hopefully somebody bites, and if they want to pray, fine. But I just can't. For me, it's just, I can't do it. I don't want to fake it. But as I said, Jesus prayed before meals. He gave thanks. And this is another thing I started asking myself. Where in my life am I regularly thanking God and showing gratitude for all that he's done for me? I don't have a good answer for that one either. And that's kind of bummed me out too. And now I'm wondering, like, what do I need to do? What do I need to change in my life to get there? I share both of those examples just to say that we don't want people faking it here at Crossroads. I don't want you to fake it. That's not faith. If you're one who is into worship, be all in. Be all in. Be dancing in the aisles. Do whatever. Be true. Yes, please. But you don't have to fake it. And you're not going to find faith by faking it. All right, part 3. Paul writes, I've fought the good fight. I've finished the race. I've kept the faith. Henceforth, there's laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day. And not only to me, but also to all who have loved his appearing. Paul finished well. I want to finish well. And I want you to finish well. I am so excited for everyone who got baptized at Crossroads this weekend. Man, that is awesome. That is the most vulnerable thing you can do. Right? Putting God first, and you can't fake it. You're getting in the water. And that's amazing. But I want to speak now to the people who have been in this for a couple years or a few decades. Because we know that as you get through children and as you get through tragedies and job changes and all the things and moves and you get through all the questions, it doesn't always feel that way, right? Like the day you got baptized. I once heard our Anywhere pastor, Andy Ryder, say, there is a faithfulness that's not measured in days or weeks, but in years and decades. And that's what I want. So faith equals first, not fake, to the finish. Someone on our staff said, that's the tattoo you need to get, to the finish. So I asked them to mock it up just to show you what I think I would look like. I'm thinking about it. I think it looks pretty good. You're gonna have many times in your life when you fail to put God first. You're gonna have times in your life where maybe you fall a bit into religion or you fake it. Jesus said we're gonna have trials, we're gonna have tribulations. It's very important we put that into perspective. So I saw this clip by tennis great Roger Federer, right, one of the greatest tennis players ever. He did a commencement speech at Dartmouth University 2 years ago, and I want you to just hear his perspective on that.
Perfection is impossible. In the 1,526 singles matches I played in my career, I won almost 80% of those matches. Now, I have a question for you. What percentage of points do you think I won in those matches? Only 54%. In other words, even top-ranked tennis players win barely more than half of the points they play. When you lose every second point on average, you learn not to dwell on every shot.
Isn't that amazing? He won 80% of his matches, but only 54% of the points. Just above half. That's all it took. I think that is a great perspective to put on faith, is to try to get more wins than losses. Now, you might think, I have a losing record and there's no chance. That's the good news. That is the gospel, is you don't have to have a winning record, right? That you only have to believe in Jesus. Once we establish that, then I think to live a life of faith, taking an attitude of, I'm gonna try this day, okay, I failed, I'm gonna move on to the next, and I'm gonna try to win today. If I fail this day, okay, I failed, I'm gonna move on, and I'm gonna try to win today. If you bring enough of those together, you get above that, you get that winning record, and that faith goes all the way to the end of your life, and it withstands all the stuff that's gonna be thrown at you. Let's return to Abel and Cain for a moment. The word Cain in Hebrew means possess or get or acquire. It comes from Eve's quote, I have acquired man. The word Abel, however, means breath or vapor, something that's not permanent. Cain or Abel was not on the earth that long. So the one who is celebrated for his faith thousands of years later is the one who represents moving on. Whereas the one who is a cautionary tale is the one who represents holding on tightly. That's how we finish well, adopting that Abel attitude, right? I'm gonna move on, I'm gonna go to the next one. That's a life of faith and how we get to the finish. And we have to help each other do that, right? Because we can't do it alone. Because we're all gonna have trials and tribulations, and we have to help each other get there. Paul said, therefore, encourage one another and build one another up. The people who gave us this box were doing exactly that. They encouraged us. They've encouraged us for 15 years by giving us this box. I'm gonna give you a gift at the end of this service, but before I do, I wanna end just telling you a story of a friend of mine who I think is one of the most faithful people I know. I think he would probably disagree if you asked him, but I think he is, and I'm gonna tell you why I believe that. My friend Dave, he has every reason that many of us have to not be faithful. He suffered real abuse in the church at a young age, went through bankruptcy as he was trying to lead a young family. He then rebuilt it, got back on his feet, and has been very successful later in his life, which I think for many of us, that's the biggest threat to your faith, right? Because you can now rely on your own success, your own money, your own efforts. He is a lawyer and a critical thinker, so he has all the questions, right? He reads all the books and he has all the questions. Well, why is this? How does this work? I don't understand this. This doesn't seem right. And in the last 18 months, so 18 months ago, if you asked him to give you a top 10 list of the closest friends in his life, in the last 18 months, he's had to watch 3 of them pass away prematurely from different medical things. And just days after officiating the celebration of life for one of those men, he got a call that a 4th has serious cancer and he's now walking beside that person. He has every reason to not be faithful. But every year, he has an event at Christmas time where he invites like over 100 guys, business acquaintances and friends, for bourbon and cigars. And many of those men don't have faith or lost their faith a long time ago. But at the end of the night, he will stand up in front of all those men and he will say in some form, I want you to know I believe there is a God. I believe he's good. And because of that, I want to be there for you any chance I get. And he tells him, he says, you only have to text me 4 words. I need a beer, and I'll be there for you. And for many men, it's their favorite night of the year. And he recently shared an email with me that he wrote to the friend he's currently walking beside who's very sick. And this is what he said in that email. This is his email to this other person. He said, we've both seen some of the worst of religion. For me, that started when priests abused their trust and position of power. We've witnessed firsthand people justifying questionable actions based on some convenient theology or obtuse interpretation of the Bible. It's easy to give up on all of it. Believe me, I've tried, but I can't. I can't shake my belief that this is not our only existence. I've witnessed and experienced too much love and too much grace in my life to deny the existence of God. My faith may be amorphous, but it is unshakable. I'm leaning into that right now to help navigate or understand what the hell's happening. I want to encourage you to do the same. Consider it another form of the treatment regimen. He said his faith is amorphous as Abel, but it's unshakable. And that's faith. Putting God first, making yourself vulnerable, and then encouraging others to the finish. I said I want to give you a gift. I said I don't like worship music, but I do like music. And I heard this song a year ago, and the first time I heard it, it made me cry because I wanted someone to sing it to me. And so I asked that we play this song this weekend. And for you, all you have to do is just sit there and just listen, nothing else.
Took a walk and I saw the land where Adam stepped foot for the first time. Realized he was a man. Saw the dogwoods, held some in my hand. As my old man really told me to stop and count them all while I can. The key to life is enjoying the journey when you don't know the end. So let's stay out here for a while, my friend. Let's stay and walk the line till the end. And I know you're tired, hell, so am I. We can't take the same road again. Let's stay out here for a while. Well, I took a look and I saw the light where Eve stepped foot for the last time and took the first bite. Born in a battlefield, we stand tall as giants. You fight with the wind, yeah, our story winds up with footprints behind us. Let's stay out here, oh, let's stay. Stay out here for a while, my friend. Let's stay and walk the line till the end. Yeah, I know you're tired, and hell, so am I. We can't take the same road again. So let's stay out here for a while.
I told you I heard that song, it made me cry because I wanted someone to sing it to me. And I want to sing it to you. right? We got to walk beside each other to the finish. And I know the lyric, I know you're tired, hell so am I, will also generate a couple emails. I understand that. And I respect your position, I do. But let me tell you this. We did talk about it. And we said, no, we got to leave it in, because that, just like in Dave's email, that's the real emotion, right? That's what we feel, that we are all in this together. And if we just put God first and we're vulnerable in front of him and we just don't fake it to the finish, then I think he has incredible things for us. And I think about what Dave says, send me, I need a beer and I got you. I'd say to anyone who has my number, send me, I need a beer and I got you. You can send it to any Crossroads staff member. You don't have to use those 4 words, but any Crossroads staff member would respond. I think anyone in our community would respond, right? Because we are all in this together, and if we go to the finish, what God has for us is indescribable goodness for every one of us and also for our community. And I'm just so excited for where he's leading us and where he's leading all of you. Jesus, thank you for this weekend. I pray that everybody walks out of here encouraged, and if they don't, that you will encourage them as they walk out of here, and that you'll be with us this week. We love you, and we want to put you first. In your name we pray. Amen.
Yeah. Well, first of all, who knew Rob had guns like that, man? I feel like I got some catching up to do, man. He got some guns up under that shirt. Today's message was incredible, man. I really love Rob's authenticity as he spoke about worship and he spoke about not wanting to pray over the food. I loved how he recognized where he was, but he didn't stay there. I love what it stirred up in his heart, a desire for worship.
Yes.
And also, Lord, where am I actually giving you thanks on a regular basis?
Yeah, it was strong. It was good. If today's teaching impacted you, or you know someone else who might benefit from it, you can just send them the link to it right now. It's just as easy as shooting them a text.
Yeah. But before we go, we got 3 quick hitters for you. No matter what your age, life, or your stage in life is, this coming up on August 7th, we actually have at all of our physical sites, we have a movie night. And I can't say the name of the movie, but I'll leave you with this quote. Heroes get remembered, but legends never die. Come out and enjoy it with us, and bring a friend, neighbor, co-worker, anybody.
Yeah, that's right. It's a great way to invite people into our buildings without inviting them to a church-specific thing, and it's all free. We'll have popcorn and drinks and sodas and candy. It's going to be great. But if you don't care about 90s baseball movies, maybe you'd better come to our Young Adults Collective Night.
Yes.
If you're in your 20s, 20s can be the best of times and the worst of times. So don't go through it alone. The next collected night is this coming Thursday, August 6th. And if not for the teaching or the worship or making some new friendships, come for the ice cream and the food trucks. This is for ages 18 to 29-ish at Crossroads Uptown, which is on UC's campus.
Yeah, man, if they're not checking IDs, I'll be there, man. They say 40 is the new 29-ish. I'm sure they say that somewhere, man. Yeah, but anyway,
But if you're 40, actually, it's not for you. It's 29-ish.
Last thing, for the married folks. Look, now I sound 40 again. But anyway, for the married folks.
For you.
We've got, for me, we've got something called Marriage Community coming up. So we want to help you with your marriage, right? And giving you practical tools, not just ideas or concepts. So on August 7th, tonight, if you're actually watching this in real time, we're having the conversation most churches skip over. Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
You had to go there. I used to be in student ministry here at Crossroads, and we would do a sex series every year, and it was always why is it so awkward? But we would have the students yell sex because God created sex and calls it good. So why don't we talk about it? Why does it get weird?
Yeah, I have no idea. He tells us to be fruitful and multiply. And listen, I'm about my Father's business. So anyway, join us for this community and this conversation about sex. Whether you're streaming with us or whether you're going to attend a local site, you don't even have to leave your couch to attend. You just have to be married, and hopefully that makes it easier for you. So love for you to be a part of that. Thank you so much for watching today and streaming with us, and we will see you next week.